Hi everyone, this is Harry Hoffman, week 4, day 2. Today I want to introduce to you a tool that is called a timeline, which has been really helpful in my work as a member care provider. A timeline can be used in many different creative ways, for example for debriefings, and I show you a couple of pictures here. For debriefings, for conflict mediation, and also for organizational development to see the big picture and of a certain period of time or a certain event. The big picture, then you look at the positives, at the negatives that happens, the facts, thoughts, feelings that happened, and it gives the person a visual to also see, not just talk, but also see and visualize what has happened. And as I said before, a good doctor treats the disease and a great doctor treats the whole person. And a timeline is a great tool to look at the big picture and as the whole person. And today we talk about the calling timeline, the calling from God on your life as you build a successful member care ministry and also as you help as a member care provider the people you serve. A calling timeline can give a unique perspective to the people you serve and to yourself. Put yourself in the larger story and put your pain, that is real pain in the moment, to put that into perspective of a larger story. And that can be really, really helpful also to help you and the people you serve to move from a self-centered, sort of self-pity, pain, self-centered point of view to a God-centered point of view by looking at the big picture of a situation. Where do you come from? What has happened? And where am I now in the whole journey? And we do this today by looking at Joseph in the Old Testament, which is the story Genesis 37 to Genesis 50. Let's get started. So Joseph starts his story very excited. He has these dreams and he shares those dreams and he has favor with his father. And it's like, there is a lot of excitement about the dreams and the visions he has. And he shares those with people around him. And it's like many cross-cultural workers and missionaries when they receive a calling, when they get ready, there is a lot of hype, a lot of excitement. We share, we try to get people to be excited with us, to understand our excitement. And I still remember that in my first years out on the field, there people prayed for me, and you're going to be a city on a hill. And I'm so excited to live out my calling because I know exactly what my calling is. And so that's the first phase. So the next thing that happens to Joseph is his excitement and his sort of arrogance annoys his brothers. They want to kill him. Finally, they sell him to Egypt, and that ends his excitement. And I shared that yesterday, Jesus' brother were also annoyed with Jesus and about his passion. So Joseph goes downhill. And the lessons he is supposed to learn from a big picture point of view is less of me and more of you. Less of me, more of you. And this is a phase where we learn dependency on God. This story of plateauing or going downhill is very different from person to person, but I don't know any older missionary who hasn't been through that. A phase of isolation, a phase of prison, a phase of betrayal, a phase of desert times and desert years. Some people remain in their calling. Other people just totally leave their primary calling and feel like, what is happening to me? But God is faithful ultimately, and God will use you in the end. But this phase is so important to more and more rely on God, more of Him, less of me, the dependency stage, so to speak, and that it's not about me. It's not about me holding the steering wheel in my hands, but it's letting God do. And that there is a fine line between relying on my strength and relying on God, dependency on God, because we still need to understand our own strength and our own calling and our own gifting. But you cannot learn this lesson by reading a book. You have to learn this lesson by living through the desert phase, the prison phase, and the isolation phase. And once you come out, you understand what I'm talking about. And I presume many of you understand what I'm talking about. Integrating the strength, but relying fully on God Himself. Joseph works in Egypt as a household manager for the household of Potiphar. And he's doing a great job there. In the end, Potiphar's wife tries to seduce him. He refuses and he ends up in prison. Sort of, he just got himself, oh, I have a role, I can function, I'm a slave, but I'm sort of okay, free, kind of. And then this happens and I end up in prison again. So that's sort of the next phase. Working as a household manager in Potiphar's house is not Joseph's calling. But sometimes we end up, oh, I stay as a household manager, great, it's the second best, it's the plan B, but maybe that's all God has there for me. But God has more. He has destined you towards more. And so Joseph goes again into prison, and what can he do? Joseph is such a nice guy. He builds himself up. He sort of becomes the manager. I guess he's friendly. He's very relatable. And sort of he's the prison manager. And then Pharaoh's cupbearer and I think the baker, they end up in prison with him. They have dreams and he interprets the dreams. They get out and he tells them, get me out of here. Put in a word for me with Pharaoh so I can get out of prison. And then forget him for 2 years. These guys who he helped, they forget him for another 2 years and he remains in prison. So you build, I mean, this is another form of betrayal. You help someone, you feel like, oh, maybe that's my stepping point, my next step out of here towards my calling. And it feels like another betrayal. And from a big point of view, it's all about character development, spiritual development, growing and giving the dependency totally to God. Well, in the end, Joseph, still in prison, ends up interpreting the dreams of Pharaoh, and then he gets released. Finally, he is ready. He's ready to be released, and he becomes second in command. And that's what his calling was all about. He becomes the ruler of Egypt, or the second in command of Egypt, and he's able to preserve the life of his family. He's able to save his family in the drought time that has hit the land. So these are both fulfillments of the dreams that he had as a child. And then there is a being calling. Next to the doing calling, there is a being calling. The being calling stands in Genesis 50, verse 20. In spite of everything that has happened, God meant it for good. And you can only say those words when you have the big picture. And it's really hard to say those words, God meant it for good, when you are in prison, when you serve somebody else's calling, when you feel betrayed, you feel isolated, you feel tempted, and really, really hard. But the story of Joseph tells us when you have the big picture, and as you read the story, he has many, many struggles, also reconciling with his family and with the betrayal and forgiving, etc. He has many struggles there. But in the end, he says, God meant it for good. And that can be such an encouragement for us as we build successful member care ministries and as we help other people, other missionaries to grow and deal with their pain. Obviously, you need to be sensitive when to say those words, but sometimes it's just a timely advice to put things into a bigger perspective. And so this is a tool I want to pass on to you, and Joseph is a great story. And I put a couple of links in the show notes below where you see creatively designed timelines, the timeline of Joseph and also part of Jesus, and Abraham is there as well. So hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope there is something in here for you. And tomorrow we will talk about another aspect of the pyramid of care and BAM, business as mission. Looking forward to seeing you again. Bye.